Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to this very special evening. To introduce myself, I'm Taran, a junior year student from the Department of Biotechnology, and I'm the General Secretary of Students Alumni, sir. First of all, I would like to thank everyone present here on behalf of our entire team. One of the major impacts we had as students because of this pandemic was, not being in the campus and not having any guidance or interaction with our seniors or mentors. And to bridge that gap with CDC just around the corner, we are trying to bring in as many impactful alumni as possible to discuss and guide everyone in respective fields. And today we are talking about data science and analytics. So we have done a similar talk in the past about IT, software, consulting, and one about foreign education, etc. And these recordings are all available on our social media panels. And so without any ado, let's introduce today's panel. Introducing today's panel, first we have Ms. Ritu Tak, and she graduated in 2015 from the Department of Physics. She also did her MS in data science from Columbia University, and now she's the vice president in JP Morgan Chase, and she also worked with Capital One in the past. Next, we have Ms. Rajita Kulkarni. She did her integrated masters and in the Department of Chemistry, and she graduated in 2014. She also did her master's in business analytics from University of Cincinnati. Now she is currently based in Seattle, and she used to work for Amazon. And very recently, I think she switched to Facebook as a data engineer. And Mr. Manoviran is next. He graduated in 2019, a very recent graduate, and he from the Department of Civil Engineering. He is now a data engineer in JP Morgan Chase. Mr. Harshil Singh, he graduated in 2017 and he did his MS in data science from Columbia University too. Now I think he graduated from the Department of Biotechnology and now he is a data scientist in Audible. So, I think we should go around and let everyone say a couple of words about themselves if possible. So, Ms. Rito, you first.
Oh, okay, I can start. Yeah, so I studied physics and then I actually worked in Axis Bank. That's where I was placed after graduation, and I worked with them for 2 years. And I was in their data science team. And after that, I decided that, okay, I was learning things top down, but I wanted to kind of go bottom up. So I decided to pursue a master's in data science. And after that, I've been working with JP Morgan Chase. I am located in New York. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Ms. Rajita.
Yeah, hi. So I graduated in 2014 and I completed integrated masters in chemistry. So after graduation, I worked for a year in India. So I worked as a data analyst in Quantum Analytics, Hyderabad. And same as Ritu, like later I thought maybe I need some formal education in the field of analytics before I, proceed. So I decided to do masters in business analytics, and that's when I moved to US to University of Cincinnati. And like Tarun said, since then I worked with Amazon for a couple of years and recently moved to Facebook.
Mr. Manoviran.
Yeah, hi, my name is Manoviran. I graduated in 2019 from Department of Civil Engineering. I basically started with data analytics and did couple of return internships over there. I did one of my internships in Quantify, that's a ML based startup. And next, for the placement, I started preparing for the software engineering companies as well. And I was placed in JP Morgan, and I'm currently working as a data engineer here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manoviran. Harshil.
Yeah. Hey. So I done as was mentioned before. I'd done my bachelor's and master's in biotech at KGP. Graduated in 2017. I had my bachelor. You could say my bachelor thesis and master thesis was in the intersection of biomedical spaces and machine learning, and so I kind of decided to formalize my education there and explore the field of data science more in depth. And so I came to Columbia for my master's. And after that, I've been working with Audible as a data scientist. I interned with them, and then I started working with them full time since since about 2.5 years at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Harshil. So now that we have introductions out of our way, so I'll just lay the ground with a very basic question to start with, and I think the first one would be about there are like many roles in this field itself. Like in the data field, there is data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, machine learning engineers. Like for a person who is new to this, like me, for example, it is very confusing. Like there's a very thin line separating these. So we would like I think it would be really helpful if you could give some major distinction and similarities in these. So who wants to take, like anyone can take it?
I can start. So, maybe to explain the differences and similarities between the role, we can think of it as how the data is generated. So some action takes place, right? Somebody clicks on something or some action takes place, and that's how the first set of data is generated. So SDs generally work on that source system where they make sure that that data is captured and then stored in the background. And that's when immediately data engineers come into picture. Data engineers will work with SDs to understand what data do we need to store, how do we want to store it, and also set up all the pipelines to bring that data in and make it available into like in a system where it's very easily accessible. That is hopefully using Python or like SQL. So very standard languages, right? So that's what data engineers do. They have to work with SDs on the like on one end, and on the other end they have to work with the business to understand what data do we need or how do we want to use the data. That's how they'll decide what to capture and how to capture it. And the next set is like data analytics, like data analysts, data scientists. These are the people who actually use that data. Data analysts focus more on analyzing the data, finding trends, and making suggestions. And data scientists generally focus on, like building models. Maybe you want to implement something and you want to train data, understand what's going on. So that's what data scientists would do. And next is MLE. So machine learning engineers, they would put these models into production. And actually, like when you search something on Google, you see recommendations of what you actually want to search. So that's where somewhere between final SD and DS is the MLE, like MLE comes in. So they need to have some knowledge about algorithms, but they also need to have knowledge about the systems, like the end user systems or more technical systems that SDs use. So that's the like a very high level distinction between the roles. So yeah, I think if
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. Thank you. It is actually very clear. And if anyone wants to add something, they can right now. Mr.
So
Harshil.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can go first. Like, first of all, like it is very confusing for everyone what these roles entail. Data engineer is kind of distinct because you're building data pipelines, and that's kind of clear on its own. But other than that, data scientist, machine learning engineer, both of these roles are pretty confusing, and they are used like cross-functionally across firms. So for anyone who's trying to understand what this role means, it's very easy. Like you should go to LinkedIn and like just look for jobs like data scientist and look for like what's required and what this job really is, because some of the companies would call a data scientist who's actually kind of like doing the machine learning engineer role, and vice versa. So it's very much possible. But like on the whole, majority of the companies, when they say data scientists, it's usually experiment design and like A/B testing, hypothesis testing, mostly those skills rather than like model building. And sometimes they do build models, but it's not like their bread and butter. But for machine learning engineer, it's kind of more of a end-to-end role. But over and above just like knowing models, you also need to know like the software dev skills. That translates well into the machine learning engineer role rather than the data scientist. And when it comes to the skills involved, like for a machine learning engineer, you need to know like programming very well, maybe Python or R. But with respect to the data scientist role, you can do well with like knowing SQL and Tableau and like using these to like generate insights. that's more important in a data scientist role. Meanwhile, in the machine learning engineer role, you need to build those models, and you should also know how to push these models into the production. But again, like, it depends from firm to firm, and you need to go into like the job description of the firm to really understand what this position is about.
Okay.
Right.
That's actually, yeah, Mr. Harshit, go on.
Yeah, no, and to just add a little further into what Ritu had said. So basically, you could imagine within data science, there's so many different titles, right? And as mentioned previously, data engineering and you could say data engineering, data analysts are usually a little more intuitive to understand. But when it comes between data scientist, machine learning engineer, in some companies like Amazon, there are even further distinctions, right? So if you think of two big spheres, one sphere being ML, okay, rather I would say think of it as three spheres. One sphere being the business, right? Second sphere being machine learning, and the third sphere being software infrastructure and development. Within Amazon, there are multiple roles that you can have in this spectrum. So a data scientist would, as Ritu mentioned, kind of lie at the intersection of business and machine learning, sometimes tending more, in most companies, skewing more towards the business side. Whereas when it comes to other roles, like for example, there could be research scientists, applied scientists, or machine learning engineers, right? They're all scattered across different points in the spectrum. And so a research scientist would be purely in the theoretical ML or applied ML space, right? And then if you move a little forward, an applied scientist would be somewhere segmented between the theoretical applied ML space and pure development. And a machine learning engineer would skew more towards the development side, not necessarily requiring sound. They don't need to necessarily know the background behind models or how the algorithms work, but they need to know how to deploy them at scale and how it all weaves in together with customer or business facing interfaces.
Okay. Yeah, that was actually really informative, and it was three unique and similar perspectives which you got there. Mr. Manoviran, would you like to add something to this from your perspective?
Yeah, if you read about their descriptions, right? Like where are you applying, and if you even see what the job name or the job role itself sees. So engineer is a one who is creating new things, like he's developing something new. He's like suppose a software engineer, he's creating some software as a service. But for data engineer, mainly data engineer are focused on creating data lakes, so that at one place they can store everything, they can manage the whole infrastructure out of it. There would be SDLC runs for it, that every day you will be getting some dump of data. You need to provide that data to the business or the data analyst who wants to use it. And that's pretty much about data engineering. And it is very quite growing role nowadays, because everyone needs to store data and manage data. It gets too much scalable that after a point it gets difficult to manage. So from the starting point, you need to think strategic. And the other one, right, machine learning engineer, that's a hot topic at the moment. Like that's a lot of research going on into the machine learning. They are trying to make a machine learning based system. So suppose when you are making a machine learning algorithm, right, you are testing just one model on your own. First you clean the model, then you deploy it, then you test it. But in machine learning engineers, what they try to do is they try to create machine learning ecosystem, that whenever you just give them a model, you plug in with the data, and then automatically all the cleaning can be done, or like that's a minimal effort.
So like, if as a person who's aiming as a fresher, what would be like, skills which are required for each field? Of course, I think a few fields will require greater knowledge, like three of them have done MS here. So I would like to hear everyone's perspective. We would like to hear everyone's perspective on that. I think we should start with Mr. Manoviran, since he graduated recently and he'll have the most idea about it.
Yeah, sure. So when you see yourself as a graduate, right, mostly you won't know reality about the big projects. You will be only a part of small software testing, or you may develop many software services. But when you will be looking at a whole platform, right, then you get many aspects of it. Like you need to understand how it is computing, how it is storing, and where are the breaks. That's all whole one real project. So don't jump into it like how can one become a good data engineer or like a good machine learning engineer. Start with the basics, which are software engineering itself. I'm talking only about the engineering, leaving analyst part apart, because analyst is totally separate and data scientist is also separate, because they are special, having special what do we say, the skills in creating the models. But engineers are the one who are creating services, and they work in together. But yeah, the data first comes through the engineers, they build some services and then give it to the analysts or the data scientists. That's where business comes into picture.
Okay, thanks for that a lot. Miss, I think we should go with Rijita.
Sure. So yeah, like that's correct. Skill set required for each role is slightly different, but the basic skill set required is still the same. You know, like you need to have a good understanding of like regular tools that we use to look at data. That is starting with very basic like Excel. So Excel has a lot of functionalities within itself. So make sure you know that well. Then there is Power BI, that is a visualization tool, which is used by a lot of companies. So that's another good way to start. Then SQL. So SQL is very widely used. Like it is a very basic language and comparatively easier to learn, but most of the companies do use it to look at data. And you know, like data is made available in systems where you can just use SQL and look at it. So SQL is the next one, and then Python. So Python has a lot of packages, and it's a like there is a lot to learn. But I would say like as a like graduate, maybe you can focus on data structures. That is like the very basic of it. So understand the basics well, and you will learn on the job. Like once you join into one of the positions, you will very quickly acquire the skills that are used in that particular company. And Tableau is also another very commonly used visualization skill. So I don't know if like Tableau is also very expensive. So generally a lot of companies are moving to other visualization tools. But the crux of it is same. So if you know how to use Tableau, if you know what is going on, then you can easily move and easily like quickly adopt to other tools. Yeah.
Thank you for that. It does anyone would Ritu and Miss Ritu and Harshi like to add anything to it?
I can start. So first of all,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of tools that are used, but most of them like you can learn on the job when you're working. Like in my experience, it depends on the firm actually with which you're interviewing for the internship or for the final placements. Some of the firms, they kind of expect a little bit of experience or a little bit of projects in these fields. But mostly what they expect you to have is kind of like be able to like solve puzzles, do guesstimates, like your thinking process, how logical is that, and how can you frame a problem and kind of like solve it after that. What helps also is like knowledge of like probability. These are kind of the questions they usually ask, and a bit of statistics, but not too much. Like they some of the firms go into like hypothesis testing and p-values and what it means. For example, American Express, I interviewed with them twice and twice did not get it, just because I didn't have a project that I could show and no internship experience. So yeah, it depends on the firm, but some of the firms, like when I got placed with Axis, they really were like looking at the communication skills. That is also very important. And yeah, just basic questions of maths that you could solve and talk about other things, your interests, where you see yourself in 5 years, which is a question that people tend to ask. But these things, and once you join, that is when you like really start learning. But definitely good to get like a head start. And when you have so much time, I think like undergrad, you do have a lot of time. And if you can get a running start, like get a running start. And especially now that you have like these courses that are available online, for example, Coursera, So once I got placed, and I was in the data science team, and they expected me to build a model. Like I was like surprised how they could give a fresher so much responsibility to like just alone with a mentor build a model and do implementation testing. And it was like a lot of responsibility for a person who had no experience. So I enrolled in Coursera. There's like this machine learning specialization. That's when like I kind of like learned everything step by step. So yeah, like you always, if you could have done that in undergrad, better do it in undergrad. But like it's not like, okay, you're in fourth year now and you do not know anything, so you know you're kind of screwed. It doesn't happen like that. You definitely get the opportunity. What they expect from people is to have an open mind and be able to learn. And once you have that and you have general aptitude, you can definitely also do it once you join as a fresher.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I guess people have covered all the main points that there is to speak about in this space. What I can serve over here is as a summarizer, or something to just what you can take away from this conversation, which would be something like if you were to understand what your skill sets are required, what skill sets are required of a fresher for each of these 4 roles that we're focusing on in today's session. It of course varies by the role, but you could divide your subjects into, let's say, 3 categories, 3 or 4 categories. The first category could be pure computer science concepts like algorithms, data structures at the very basics. Again, you don't have to go into advanced algorithms like linear programming and stuff like that, but just basic understanding of graphs and search algorithms and dynamic programming and stuff like that. And then, so that is the algorithm space, right? And to complement that, you could also practice, as Ritu and the others mentioned, competitive programming on the side, because some companies do also tend to ask a little bit about, they tend to test your programming skills through some easy or medium level programming questions. Then the other area that you can focus on in terms of preparation is, or in terms of your coursework, would be the math and ML related coursework. So the math coursework would entail subjects like probability statistics, or like probability, statistical inference, linear algebra, and so on, right? And the ML related coursework would entail stuff like applied, or first of all, theoretical ML, applied ML, and then maybe specializations into subjects such as, which is of course a bonus, not required, but specialization into subjects such as NLP or deep learning and so on, right? And then another area of study, another area of work could be in terms of your projects or your courseworks, right? And if you haven't had any internship experience yet, what would help is like even doing projects on the side out of interest or as a hobby, just showing that you have the ability to take initiatives and showing that you have passion for the field you're applying for. But yeah, that'd be about it.
Yeah, I think that covers it. Actually, that covers up all my follow-up questions too. And to go with what Ritu and Harshil have also mentioned, I wanted to know how, you guys were mentioning how interviews were taken, what different companies looked at in different interviews. So, what exactly is seen in a fresher's CV? Like, what is the biggest, what would be the biggest factor, and how much each factor would weigh? Of course, internships are important, but how important over projects? Like that. If you could give a small perspective into that, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, I can start. So in your interviews, right, fundamentals matter the most. So suppose like if I talk about only the software engineering kind of interviews, they won't be directly hiring you as any of the specialized roles. Like suppose data engineering is kind of a side cut role to a software engineering. A data engineer will also develop software services, but he will be handling mostly a data platform. So that's where you can gain your simple fundamentals about operating systems, distributed computing, DBMS. So when I was also in college, I just started grabbing these courses. I tried to improve my basics of theory as much as I can. And when I was there in an interview, he was mainly there was one ED of JP Morgan. He was from KGP, and he was basically interested in understanding how memory management works in OS. So he stretched even like that one single topic to 30 minutes. And he was a director. He knew that that's a very basic, simple concept which holds priority. And if I can just discuss one single concept, right, that's enough. And that was it. So focus on the fundamentals. Don't need to, like, if you're fearing that you're missing some practical projects, it's not a worry. Just start doing maximum reading you can. So for if I say for the data engineering, right, one simple concept if you will learn in computer sciences, like map and reduce. So that's how they try to distribute the processing and try to maximize the calculations, like ease the calculations or that. And nowadays there are a lot of things to make the data engineering roles easy. Like if you read about how AWS has made it easy, everyone over here in industry is using mostly AWS, and that's almost just plug and play. So those are kind of services, and which you will come to know once you are in the job. But if your fundamentals are strong, nothing can stop you.
Thanks for that. Would anyone like to go ahead and add something in case they have something extra?
I mean, like one of the things that people are worried about their CG a lot, and if that matters, I would say like there's a threshold, and if you're above that threshold, around like 7.5, you should be good if you do well in the written test. Most of the companies do take a written test where you're like solving aptitude questions. So if you're very good at that, you'll definitely like get an interview call, irrespective of like what's there on your resume. Given that your CG is above the threshold, and once you get the interview call, it kind of like depends on the company and what they're looking for. But definitely, what is a plus is whatever projects you've done, even if like they're kind of slightly different from the field. Like for example, I had projects in physics. Your ability to explain the problem statement and your approach, that goes a long way. Um, Even if like it's not exactly what they're looking for. And again, yeah, like Manaviran was saying, knowing the fundamentals, like, and for ML or data science, I would say like just linear regression, logistic regression, you can go to decision trees and random forests. Like even if like you've not had projects in which you've used them, like know the fundamentals and be able to explain like how a model works. How would you build a logistic regression model, dimensionality reduction, all of these basic concepts that you can like read about. And if you can have a project that you're working on the side, and it would not even like take so much time, like you can definitely like work over a weekend and kind of like build the basic stuff, and then you can always like kind of try to improve the model slowly later whenever you get some time. So yeah, all of these like basic fundamental theory, it's easier to grasp and do some projects on the side. So yeah, but in the interviews, yeah, it depends really on the company, if they're looking for guesstimates or if they're looking for like communication skills, or they really require some experience. So goes on from company to company. And before you're interviewing, like it's if it is for internship or for a full time, like definitely like try to network with your seniors who've like given that interview like a year back or a couple of years back, and really understand what that company's process is like and what they are judging you on. That's very important. Like you cannot like prepare in your head for a company and go there and like find that they're looking for something totally different and they're judging you on different set of skills. So even before like if you have a few target companies, first of all, like you have to like talk to people and understand what the rules are like and what are the target companies for you that you are aiming for and that you can achieve. And once you have that list, try to find more about, okay, what's the interview process, how many rounds do they have, what are the kind of questions they ask for, and that really kind of helps you prepare for the interviews that you're kind of going for. Because sometimes people just like go blindly into the interview with the preparation they have had for any company, and then it doesn't work out. So that's it.
Thanks for that. Something I wanted to mention that I know a lot of people will have doubts. So you can actually send them over a personal message to any of my teammates, which is Satyam, Vikas, Namya, or Pramjot, and raise your hand, and we'll get back to them towards the end of the session if they're not clarified yet. Okay, thank you. So should we move on, or Harshila and Rujita, do you have anything to add to it, or do you think it's covered?
I have one thing to add. So I think everything is covered regarding like CDC campus placements. But if you are applying outside, right? I was placed as a SD through campus, and then I applied off campus, and then that's how I joined as a data analyst. So what helped me was a couple of, like, I had some internships in chemistry, and then I had some internships in analytics. So I focused more on the internships that were related to analytics field. And I also took some external courses, which I added into like my CV. So along with writing about chemistry and chemistry courses, which was my major, so that was definitely there. But along with that, I also added other external courses that I took on either on internet, or even like KGP allows you to take additional courses, like either do a minor or just audit a course. If you don't want to, like prepare and give the exam, you can just audit the course. You still get it in your transcript, so you can write it in your CV. So I think, yeah, that's something like that is a very good option that is available at KGP.
Right. And to just add one final point, as a layer on top of everything, what Manoviran and everyone else has said, it's of course really really valuable inputs. But what is also very helpful is taking the time to practice for interviews, right? And in a sense, whenever you get the chance, do take mock interviews very seriously. Practice with your friends. Like, I know you're all remote right now, so maybe you can ask your family members to help you. And also, as Ritu mentioned, and others have also mentioned, networking is very important. When you're applying to specific company, know some people. Try to reach out to seniors from those companies who can give advice on specific inputs about the hiring process and what they're looking for. And in the absence of a lot of experience, which is, and as college students, you're not expected to have a lot of experience. It would be wrong to expect college students to have a lot of experience. And so in the absence of all that experience, what matters is, like, even if you're studying in an unrelated field and you're applying for CS or ML or some kind of a job, just doing coursework, related coursework is important, showing interest. And even if you don't have projects with companies, um, related projects with courses you've taken at KGP, you could try to do a minor in something else, right? You could even if you're doing, like, example, a degree in biotech, you could try pursuing a minor in something else like computer science with a focus on machine learning, for instance. And just take extra courses in your free time. And through those courses, you'll get the opportunity to do so many other projects that you can just list on your resume.
Thanks a lot for that. I think that was very elaborate and very clear what it means. So basically, I think this question would be more focused to Manoviran and Rujita, because they said they had experience on SD profiles. So it's a very common trend which I've seen these days, that a lot of SD candidates switch over to the data side, and they move to the data side eventually, giving interviews. And so the basic question is, how much of it is a margin? Like, what's the margin in jumping from one field to other? And if you have to do so, how do you go about it?
Okay, I can start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to clarify, like, by margin, what do you mean? Are you thinking about salary, or are you thinking about opportunities?
So it's more like, how does a person jump, and what is the difference in that job? Like, of course, you mentioned what a data engineer, data scientist does. I
Yeah.
mean, how much difference is it there, and why do many people do it, and why do people jump like that from one field to
Mhm.
another? So more
Mhm.
on, like, how
Yeah.
easy is it?
Yeah. So actually, like, I have actually seen people trying to move to SD role. Like, if they are data engineers. I've also seen like the other way around. I have seen a lot of people trying to move to SDs. But then, like you said, maybe some SDs also would like to move to on the data engineering side. And I think what the main difference, right? Like the technical parts, both roles have technical parts. Like both roles are highly technical. And whereas like data engineering also works more closely with the business, and they understand, like they have to understand the data. It's not like, okay, just log this, or pull this from this website and save it somewhere. That's not enough. You need to understand what the data is, because you need to aid data analysts and data scientists further, right? You need to help them understand this data and then use it further. So that's the only difference. So I think for an SD, like for a SD to jump to data engineering, additional knowledge they might need is product sense questions. Like a lot of companies can ask product sense questions, or for campus placements, that's generally something in like group discussion. So we used to, I think, I'm not quite sure how it would work online, but still we have group discussions where they give you a topic and then they have the group brainstorm. So that's how they understand, okay, how much can you imagine, or what can you think, about a given product. Like at that point in time, you don't have a lot of knowledge about somebody's product or some topic they give. Like you can definitely prepare, like Ritu said, talk to seniors, understand what the company is looking for exactly, what do they look for. So but that's I think one difference. But later in career, like if you are an SD and if you want to move towards D, the best way, like if you're moving in the same company, is to find a data engineer and ask them to be your mentor maybe, and guide you, like walk you through their day. Maybe you can shadow them for a week or two and understand exactly what data engineers do. Like put in some extra efforts. Of course, you would have your SD like work to do, but that's how you can move. The roles are definitely very overlapping. When I was at Amazon, I was actually like I was a business analyst before, and then I was a business intelligence engineer. And as in my both roles, I have done some data engineering work as well. So it's like highly overlapping, and each company has its different different description for the role. But I would say SD to D, technically it is comparatively like easier, but product sense is something that would need some work on. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add on to it, Mr. Harshil, Ritu, or Manuviran?
Yeah, so as I told earlier, right? So software engineering is almost similar as data engineering. That's like, you can't say like only a data engineering is not making any softwares. He would be making softwares as a service, and the technology is just the different. In one technology, you are improving the softwares that it doesn't breaks anytime. Or in data engineering, you need to know the technology. How can you handle the data in a most optimized way? How can you use the minimum of all the resources? Because when there is an equation in which you need to solve for each and every parameters. You need to optimize the cost, you need to get the minimum resources, you need to make it fast, you need to make it reliable. That's just a technology aspect. The technology might change, but if you are a software engineer and you're technology oriented, right, you will learn that just one bit by bit.
Okay, I think that's all stats. So I'm moving on. I wanted to ask, like in general, what are the responsibilities given to you when you're joining as a fresher or new to a company in different positions? I think we should start with Mr. Harshil.
All right. Cool. So when you join fresh at a company, depends on the kind of role. But in general, the initial period is usually onboarding, where you're brought up to speed with the best practices at the company, the locations of different data services, data lakes, and other resources that you can use, and that would help make your life better or life easier. And different points of contacts with different stakeholders that you'd usually be, in touch with. So it would be a lot of introductions, a lot of networking around the company initially. And once you get past that introduction phase, then it would usually what you get assigned next depends on whether or not you had an internship with this previously with the company. Because if you had an internship, then they know that you're already familiar with the systems, and especially if it's with the same team, then you've already worked with the team, you've done some projects for the team, and so it would be a continuation. It could be a continuation, or it could be an extension of the work that you've done previously. And this, I guess, especially in the space of data science, problems never really end. There are always better ways to do something. There are different ways you can do something. Applications applications expand, and as visibility across the business increases, you need to find better ways and more efficient ways to make it scalable. And then as you get more and more mature into your role, then you start getting assigned multiple projects at the same time, and then you have to manage your time efficiently between several projects, while also learning on the side, and keeping an eye, especially in the field of data science, also keeping an eye out on upcoming, the latest technologies in the field, or the latest algorithms, staying in touch with recent research, especially relevant to your work, and so on. But yeah, I mean, usually it's a very gradual ramp up, and it starts usually very, very chill. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Would anyone like to share their experience now?
I can say, so yeah, when you join as a fresher, like you need to kind of like, at least I divide it into two parts, like what I would want to do and what is expected of me. So what is expected of a fresher is definitely that they ask questions. It's much simpler for everyone if you just go ahead and ask the question you're having, rather than pretending to know everything, and then like it's your day 1 or day 2 or day 10. Like if you have any question, even if you think it is embarrassing, it's not embarrassing, just go ahead and ask it. That's very important, especially in the learning phase, like when you just start out. So like the second thing is like, try to gain business understanding, what your business is trying to do, how is your team contributing to that. That is very important. So in the initial phases, like try to understand what the team is really trying to do. And also with respect to your team, like try to understand whatever, for example, like if you're a data scientist and you're getting the data from someone, so who's the team, or what is the team that's giving you that data, and whatever is the final product, who are you giving it to, and what do they do. So like try to understand where the team fits in. So who are you getting it from, and what are you giving it out, so input and output, both of that. And also that's like left and right of your team. And then the top and bottom is like who are reporting to you, and that's kind of not really there when you just start out. But like who are reporting to you and who you're reporting to, like try to understand the job role of your manager and what he does very well. And also like your boss's boss, like these two people you kind of like have to shadow and really understand how they're thinking. And like it's very important to have a good mentor or a good relationship to really like ask the right questions and be in a good rapport with them. So that's basically kind of the part where what you're expected to do. And also whenever you're given like some project and you have already put in some time and you have the business understanding, like then it's very important that you kind of like do your own research, as Harshil was saying, and kind of like be on you cannot just let go. You have to like still be in that research mode of like what's happening out there and what are the latest technologies and what's your input. So you have to kind of go the extra mile a little and have these suggestions. Okay, this is something that is going on right now. Can we implement that? Okay, will this be beneficial? So like always try to contribute something from your side to what's happening. So yeah, and like for yourself, like really network. It's very important when you join a new company, especially. You cannot be like, I mean, initially I was very shy, but you have to kind of talk to people, talk to different teams, understand what those people are doing, because it's not like you join a company and you stay in that team forever, right? So you want to understand what different teams are doing. What are you interested in? Are you interested in the work your team is doing, or do you want to like move to a different team? So that's very important. So be proactive in like setting up coffee chats with people and talk to them what their teams are doing, etc. So try to be outgoing is what I'm trying to say finally. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for that. Ruchita, would you like to add something?
I think yeah, most of what I would advise is pretty much covered. I think that is very important, like what Ritu mentioned. Ask questions. Like it's okay to not know something, but you need to ask. You can't like stay blocked, right? If somebody is expecting, if you, let's say manager gives you something like a task to do, maybe they think that, okay, you might know this, but you don't know it. Just go and ask, clarify it. That way you can do it in time rather than just waiting and trying to figure it out yourself. I think that is the most important thing, because when we are new, like I think you are like the most junior among the company, and it's really hard to talk in meetings, or everyone else appears busy, so it's difficult to approach. But that's okay. Everyone has been a fresher once, so just go and ask, unblock yourself. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Manviran, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, like almost all the general things are being added. I can talk about more in general specifics of software engineering. So, like the simple two tasks that I was assigned in my first month, right? So we had a simple data platform in which we used to have different pipelines where we store the data and then we process it for the business. So my manager gave me just 1 week for onboarding. Then the first task he gave me was that you need to maintain the UAT. That so anything that goes wrong in UAT, right? So I was looking after it. And he was forcing me again and again to go one step deeper and look into it. Why is this happening? So I would, for like first 2 or 3 weeks, I was just sitting over there, sticking around, like, okay, this is happening, but there was a question mark. Why is it happening? And after I was somewhat familiar with the platform, right? Because that's a platform and you need to understand it, how it is functioning, how can you improve it? Like more talking general about the software engineering perspective. And the next simple task he just gave me was that this is a kind of a service that we need to integrate it to the platform, and you need to take it step by step, first from develop to UAT to prod. And for me, that was a pretty tough challenge, because in the first 1 month, I was trying my hard to even understand why do we have these three different kind of environments? What is difference in between them? Why are they really important? So that's a simple software development life cycle, but we don't deal it with right in the college. We deal it only once we get into the real projects. So you can of course read about them in theory, but just keep knowing about things, but be patient. Like you will know about things when you're there in picture.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So keeping the main focus in mind that this is about CDC, and for that, one thing which I wanted to ask was how should one approach like off-campus opportunities? How different are they, and are they sometimes better in machine learning, or are they a negative factor? And how are they different from CDC? That is what we would like to know. I think Rujita told that she started as from in data as in from an off-campus in opportunity. So I think we should start from there.
Yeah, sure. So I would like to start with, like when do you need to look out like for off-campus opportunities? So a lot of times, like if you are in a different branch or not a very mainstream branch where data engineers or such positions are hired from, like chemistry. So a lot of companies are not open to these departments. Like sometimes you will want to get into a company, but probably that's not open for your department, so you can't apply through CDC. That's when you want to try externally. And how to approach it is, the best is like your network. So our KGP network is very strong. We have a lot of like people placed in a lot of great companies. So approach your seniors, like connect with them on LinkedIn. If you have like a friend who knows somebody in that company, like go for it, ask for that connection, introduce yourself and understand what the role is. So I got my first job through a senior itself. Like she was my senior in chemistry. She was also working as a like data analyst in that company. So I asked her that I'm interested in this, and like, tell me more, what should I do, how should I prepare? So she helped me through it, and that's how we got in touch. And after that, it was not difficult. Like, once I understood the roles, once I knew that I was interested, so I took all the help from her. I asked her how to prepare, what should I focus on. So yeah, I think the network is like, the KGP network is huge, and generally, yeah, people will help ping them on LinkedIn, or like, try to approach more people. Sometimes people are busy, so they might not revert back in time. So approach as many people as you can, and yeah, you'll definitely like get some contacts.
Thanks for pointers on that. Like, if anyone else has something new to add, please go on.
Yeah, I can add a little bit on top of that. So especially, am I audible?
Yeah, you
All
are.
right. So especially, no pun intended there. Anyway, especially if when it comes to pursuing off-campus opportunities, there are multiple routes that you can follow. As Ruchita mentioned, networking is very, very useful, especially getting in touch with folks who are at companies that you want to be placed at, who can then put in a good word for you, pass on your resume, and so on. Other approaches could include referrals, right? So that what Ruchita talked about was kind of like the direct route of a referral, where you have someone pass your resume directly to a hiring manager. Another route could be, even if it's someone you're not very well acquainted with, if you can get someone to, respond to you on LinkedIn and then maybe just refer you through the company's portal or whatnot, that is better than applying directly. Then the third approach, of course, is, applying directly onto a job board or directly onto the company's website, which is lesser effective. And then, you have the fourth approach could be like, you have all these companies coming and talking on campus, right? I believe that you have all of this is remote right now, but even then, you can get in touch with these organizers of these different company talks, and try to reach out to them. Most of them may not accept, but those who accept, it's at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, and you just got to reach out to as many people as you can. And the more people you reach out to, the more people are going to respond, and something out there will definitely work out for you.
Okay, thanks for that. I think that covers all of it. So, just moving on, I wanted to come to a more specific question to each of you. I'll start with Ms. Ritu. So, you did your MS from Columbia University. So, would you like to walk us through your journey, and what triggered you to do that, and how much work experience matters, or how much did that you didn't have a bachelor's in the same field affected you, and that. So if you could give us some insights on that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, like I did my master's and bachelor's in physics, and I did my internships during my undergrad, also all of them in physics. And then I got placed with Axis Bank, and I was in their data science team. And I was building these models to score their retail clients. And I did that for 2 years. And when I was doing that, as I said earlier, that I had no experience before that. Or any knowledge before that. So I started doing these courses on Coursera and that was in R, but still. So I gained a lot of understanding, and also like I read up a few books about like data science in general, about the field in general. I kind of did not have any mentor who I was following or who I was asking questions with, which was kind of like, I mean, it worked out for me, but like it's good to have someone or know someone on LinkedIn, or in general, or any senior that you could like talk to. But yeah, so for me, the journey was kind of very, I was figuring things out on my own. And then I decided basically to apply for a master's in data science. The goal was not really to, come to the US or anything like that. I just wanted, first of all, experience which is outside India, in the sense that like it's not most of the people who apply for a master's in the US, it's because they want to get a job in the US and kind of like settle down or move outside India. But for me, it was just like, okay, some experience of studying in a different country would be nice. And also another thing was basically to really understand the fundamentals. I felt like even though I was trying on my own, it would be nice to have a dedicated time period where I was just studying and not working parallelly, because that was kind of getting difficult for me, like doing the courses and doing a full-time job at the same time. So I was like, okay, I need a break right now, and I'll just like study for 2 years or 1.5 year, and then I thought I'd be able to get a better job, and that would be easier to switch. And also, like with respect to the position, I could get a better position. So it would be like a jump that way as well. And with respect to like the application process, so everyone has a different experience, and the colleges have different expectations. So some of the colleges that you apply for the masters, they do require projects that you've done in the field. That can be you doing projects during undergrad and internships during undergrad and directly applying for a master's. That works as well. A lot of people do that. Harshil did that, I think. Without a work experience, you can just directly apply for a master's, and a lot of colleges do take that into account. If you have no experience in the field and you've been doing a totally different like you're doing metallurgy, you have no experience, no projects, and you just want to directly apply for masters, it is possible. Depends on the college actually, and how well you write your SOP. Like SOP is statement of purpose, where you are explaining why you want to do that. If you have strong enough reasons, and also if your CG is high. So one of the things, it's kind of like a balancing act. You have like 3 or 4 parameters: how high your CG is, have you had enough experience in working on those projects, do you have relevant work experience, and your statement of purpose. If a few of these are pretty good, if you can show them that, okay, I have been doing metallurgy, but I've been doing this really well, so I can switch on to something different. So that works also. In my case, my CG was not very impressive. So I mean, that also, like, again, depends on the college. Some of the colleges really require high academic background. So it really depends. You have to talk to people, look at the websites, and see what kind of students they've been taking in. Some of the colleges are into like making things more diverse. So like people coming in from different undergrad backgrounds is a plus for you. So really know what, or just apply everywhere. I'm joking, but like, yeah. So it depends. For me personally, what worked out was 2 years of experience in the field, and good recommendations from my managers. And also I got a recommendation from KGP, one of my professors whose courses I did really well in. So having good recommendation, even if it is like, so for example, you're doing metallurgy and you're only good in certain subjects, and you have a good rapport with one of the professors who can write you good recommendations, that is a plus also, even if your CG is not that good. So yeah, get good recommendations, write good SOP, do whatever is in your hands well, and whatever else has happened, but like give it a try. That is what I would say.
Yeah, I think Mr. Harshil also will have something to add to this topic, because he just graduated and I think he immediately went on to do his master's, right? So do you have a different perspective from that, or would you agree to what Haritu said?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I would agree to most. I would agree very much. No reason to disagree. But basically, when it comes, I can specifically give a little more clarity on the master's application process, I suppose. So even if you're trying, like, so why do people apply to master's degrees? It could be to either gain further expertise in a field that you've already specialized in, or to change backgrounds. And colleges expect that uh, people would apply from a variety of backgrounds. Like if you're applying for a master's in computer science or data science, or some other field, it's not expected to have an undergrad in the same field, as long as you have as Ritu mentioned, every application site for any graduate degree would have a list of requirements. All you need to ensure is that you're able to demonstrate that you qualify in all of these requirements. The requirements could be along the lines of testing scores, right? Like your TOEFL, your GRE, and so on. It could be along the lines of getting 3 recommendation letters. It could be a strong statement of purpose, certain coursework that they required. In the case of data science, it would be ML. Sorry, it would be ML is not necessarily required. It would be mostly the mathematical foundations, such as probability, statistics, linear algebra. calculus, right, and stuff like that. And then some proficiency with the programming language a little bit, something that you've worked on some projects in the past and so on. And even if it's not exactly related, as long as there are elements of it that tie you to the field, or even if not that, as long as you're able to weave together a coherent story that shows your journey from whatever you did in your undergrad, all the decisions you made and how they helped you get to where you are today, and why and how they connect to where you're applying right now. So as long as you can show a coherent story, that'll be helpful. And especially when it comes to your statement of purpose, get it reviewed through many people, get the feedback, and then that'll help you improve. And a lot of it is also like applying early, being at the right place at the right time is always important. Many things are beyond your control, so applying early matters. Don't wait till the end of the deadline, right? And then let's see, especially and when it comes to choosing which places to apply to, right? I think that would be the final question. When it comes to choosing which places to apply to, have a fair balance of ambitious, moderate, and safe colleges that you would apply to. So if you're applying to 10 places, I mean, I would say a recommended number from my side would be 5 to 10. I applied to 5 places because I wasn't exactly sure if I would get in. So this was more like an experiment for me. But it worked out luckily. But I would say anywhere between 5 to 10 is a good number, definitely above at least 5. And within those 5, have a good balance of like, moderate. Safe could be you could have 1 or 2. Sorry, like the safe choices should be not more than 2. Moderate would be 1 to 2, and then your ambitious choices should be at least 1. Right? You want to make sure that you are shooting for the stars, and who knows, it might work out.
Yeah. Thank you, Harshil. I mean, that covers it very well. I have one more question, which is to follow up to Ms. Ritu. So, since you worked before going to do your masters, the question is that how much does it affect your journey in a company? Like after coming to such position, does it really matter on your education qualification, or is it more of experience and time in the company? So is that one of the motivating factors that made you do that? Like, is education really seen as a factor in that while giving promotions and etc.?
Um, yeah, it depends. Not really. Like if you're asking like whether a master's in data science was necessary, is that the question?
Mm, I mean, like, how does it affect your professional career? Like after getting into a company, if you don't have a master's and you joined from a non-core sector, like you said you did projects in physics and you joined an analytics and then joined a company. Now, did it affect that? Did it affect your competition with other people who have done a master's in this field, or like are everyone seen equal in perspective of in promotions, etc.?
Um, yeah, I think promotions are uh, are dependent on how well you're performing in the company. I don't think like looking and having a master's is necessarily important. At least like in early career promotions, like analysts to associate to VP, they are very dependent upon what were your goals for the year and whether you were able to like meet them. Um, so that's what comes in rather than having a master's. I don't think it's necessary, as long as, and especially in the field like this, right, there's a lot of resources that are available online, and if you can find the time and if you can gain the knowledge and if you can do the projects on your own, as long as you're good at what you do, you'll get promoted. It is not necessary in my view to get a master's in the field for that. A lot of my friends actually who applied for masters in data science from KGP, who did not get in and who just continued working in companies and experimented a lot. I think being in India gives you a lot of bandwidth to experiment in the companies that you want to work in US, it's kind of like a little more constrained because you have to be on a H1B visa and you can't keep, you have certain constraints. Let's not get into the details of that, but in India you can, right, you can take a break and you can study for some time, for a few months if you want, and then you can work in a very small startup. You can, I mean, there's at least, like, I think being in India, I didn't realize how much of flexibility there was. So all of that, like, you can experiment and then you can take your time, get the knowledge, and really, like, for example, what I'm trying to say is you can be the head of data science after 2 years of work in a company in an MNC, and then you can go to a really small startup and be doing work and be kind of like the head there. And once you have that sort of responsibility in a smaller company, like any of the bigger companies will hire you at a higher position because you've shown that you perform at that level. So there are many ways to get those promotions and those things rather than doing a master's in the field. It's just an option. It's not necessary.
Okay, thank you for that. So moving on, I would ask Rajita ma'am, like she got into Facebook really recently, and we want to know what your journey was and how did you get in there, and how was it different, and what was seen in you, like how were you selected, kind of thing. If you can answer that, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. So where I started was like, I think right in like from third year, I always liked math, and in third year I sort of realized that okay, I want to go in the field of analytics. So I started doing internships, taking courses, and that since like I joined as a data analyst, and that's how I started. And since then I have been working on like acquiring skills in the area, like starting with mostly technical skills. Like in KGP never really liked coding, so I had not really learned a lot. Like I just learned a bit while applying for the job, but that was it. So I think that's where I started learning to code. And after that, at my masters, I definitely got introduced to a lot of skills. So a lot of learning happened on the job, like but I at least got introduced to a lot of tools and techniques that are out there. So that's what I was doing at Amazon. Like whatever I have learned, I was trying to use it in my role at Amazon, and trying to understand that how to apply this theoretical knowledge and how to show an impact. So in these companies like Amazon or Facebook, the impact really matters. It doesn't matter like, okay, you wrote these many codes or what exactly, like that ground, nobody looks at that ground level information. But as a technical person, you will look at it, like you will think that, oh yeah, I debug like so many codes, and debugging is very difficult, but what impact does it really have? So if you can automate something, so make sure like when you start working, and once you onboard, and once you are like in a situation where you are working on your own, make sure that you have some projects where you can create a story that okay, this was not there, like people used to spend 4 hours of their day doing this, and I took it up, I automated it, and now this can be like, this is basically an automatic process. So nobody needs to spend any more time. So you are effectively like saving 4 hours of that person's day, and maybe a week, and also for the team, right? Like there are different people doing the same things for different on different products or something. So that's what I focused on. And then when I was interviewing with Facebook, I definitely looked at the job description, like what are they exactly looking for, and does it match my interest and skill set? And the main reason I moved is like I want to learn a little bit on the technical side. Like as I mentioned, I was a business analyst. I have worked as a business analyst, data scientist, and a BIE, that is business and intelligence engineer. But I don't know the back end of data, like right from the source systems, like right where engineers like pull it in. How does that part work? So I want to learn that, so that I know I get to learn the end to end, like right from when we collect and use the data. I want to know the whole cycle. So I studied Python a little bit more detail for Facebook. Like I understood that they highly use it. So that I focused on that, and I focused on product sense. So I really understood, like using net searches, basically I understood how does Facebook make money, how each of the product impacts. So when you're switching, like I think right now they don't expect you to know so much details, but in future when you're switching, like this is all what you will need to do: understand the company, understand the position, and then make sure that it aligns with your interest, because there are a lot of good opportunities out there, and you don't need to like seek something that you're not even interested in. So just put efforts into things that you're like really interested in, And yeah, so that's what I did. And basically I prepared, like it's not like, okay, I'm already working, so I know how to give interviews. It's not like that. Like whenever you are doing something, you need to prepare. So I recorded my own answers. I listened to them. I discussed it with my friends. Like, does this make sense? Does this project make sense to you? Am I clear enough? And that sort of thing. So I practiced, prepared. So, and that's how like I was able to crack, the interview.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that, Rajita. Building on that, Manuviran, I would like to ask you. So, since you're giving your CDC recently, what exactly would be the tips you could give on preparing for tests or assignments? Sorry, like assessments and interviews. JPMC is a very good company, and everyone would like to go to something like that. So, what would be your tips in that? Like, how would you go about it?
If you're focused on CTC, right? So the first important thing is you need to clear the test, and you need to make it to the top of the shortlist. That matters the most, because when
How
you
should
are
anyone
going
go
to,
about it?
are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Do I need to repeat?
No, you can go on. I think it
Okay.
was clear.
Yeah. So what matters the most is, right, if you are on the top of shortlist, you are going to make it very easy. But if you are just on the bottom of shortlist, that might be difficult, because when the HR starts the round, right, they also start with the top of shortlist, and when they are done, they just ask that others can leave. So the most important point is, when you're giving your test, just try to score as much as you can. 90% plus becomes a normal score, like for a day one and day two. Like suppose you are getting just 3 questions to make of DS algo, right, in just 1 hour. And if you're not able to make 2.5 plus, or even like 3 exact, like all test cases out of it, you might not be shortlisted. Like I'm talking about day 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. Later on the things get easy, but yeah, test becomes the most priority, because they're shortlisting on based of that. So you don't need to learn all the algorithms. Don't go into, when you're especially preparing about internships, right? What I've seen is students go deep into very difficult algorithms, like suppose dynamic programming. Then they go very deep into graph algorithms. But what they lose is they lose their speed to code. So do be really efficient about your coding. Code simple problems. Do it fast. Try to think of all the test cases you can. Do it in the first shot. Like if you're coding, right, like this is a problem, you think of a pseudo code in your mind, then code it in the first place. That's what going to make your life easy in the test. And that's most preferred choice that I've given to any advice that I've given to most of the people. Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually very thorough and elaborate. Thank you. Would anyone like to add anything else to that from your perspective?
Regarding one switch, right, I would like to clear one misconception that most of the students have. So when you're looking at your various job descriptions, right, so there it's written like you need to have a compulsory degree, BTech or MTech in computer science, or like a relevant, if you are applying for a data science, that you need to have at least a BTech in computer science, or like MTech in data science. But that's not the case. If you are looking at how many people are really working over there might not be that case. So as Ritika also said, right, it's not mandatory. So just focus on your skills and try to improve maximum you can. Nothing is mandatory on the job description. You just need to sell them out, like just make them through like we are the best fit for this job. That's it.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. The next question I would be is a more open-ended one to everyone, and it's like we all are excited to know a lot about this, but we just want to know how is a day in your life as a data engineer or a data scientist or a business analyst, and could you please walk us through it and what you do exactly, like how much of your time is spent where and like that in a brief way, if possible. I think we should start with Harshil.
All right. So I can talk about the life of a data scientist, right? And so a life of specifically speaking, a life of a data scientist in a tech company, it can vary by your industry, but for the most part, it should be pretty similar. And so you could say that 30%, if I were to just draw a pie chart about my time, I would say about 30% of it would go into all the data, data related, data processing, data acquisition, data processing, ETL management and stuff like that. About 30% of the time would be going into finding the right data sources for the problems and, setting up flows for these data sets and then processing them and understanding what features can be used for what applications. Then I would say about 20% of the time beyond that would go into the actual modeling and testing, evaluation, improvement, and all that iteration, right? Of course, for a variety of different applications. And this would also involve the research part, which would involve kind of like exploring a little bit of research also into exploring what could be the best way or how can I improve performance. Another 30% of time approximately would probably go into, you could say, pipeline building, or once you've trained these models, you've evaluated them, you know that they fit, they would perform well. Then it's about deploying them at scale or into pipelines, a CI/CD framework, so that these models, so that the inference from these models or the predictions from these models can be made available to the business. And then finally, about 20% of the time as a data scientist, because it's also a business-oriented role, that remaining 20% goes into communication, presentations, technical talks, knowledge sharing, writing technical papers, or just researching. So that's kind of how the day. And a typical day is just a mix of these. Some days involve more elements of like modeling. Some days might involve more elements of like just too many meetings in a day or something of that sort. But in a sense, that's kind of the overall picture.
Thanks for that. I think Miss Rito, could you go on next?
Sure. Yeah, so for me, I would say like it really depends on which life cycle point you're at. Are you like at extracting the data? Are you at cleaning the data, preparing data, or like building the models? When you're building the models, what are you doing exactly? Is it like you're at the variable reduction phase, or you're like creating metrics to judge how good the model is doing? So what specifically I'm working on depends on in which point I am at this point. But usually how it works for me is we have like weekly updates. So starting of the week, like I get or I decide what is it that I want to accomplish this week. And then at the end of the week, I would give an update to my manager. So I kind of like have a good amount of flexibility on like a few days I want to work a lot and few days I'm kind of like not working so much because I don't have to update every single day. But some of the teams do work like that with daily scrums. Mine is not so much like that. So once I know, okay, this is what I want to finish this week, I kind of interact with my teammates as well as the business a lot. One is with the business to really understand, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. What insights can I get from you, and what is the expectation you have of me? And also with my teammates to understand that, okay, like I need to figure out which teammate I want to interact with more, because if someone has done something similar in the past, I would not want to repeat the same mistakes. So kind of understand what were the pitfalls that you had, what are the things that you experimented, what worked out well for you, and kind of like take it from there. So that's something that I do very much. And sometimes like if even though I interact next with my manager at the end of the week, but if I have some doubts, it's just easier to clear them on the go rather than like wait for the next meeting, right? So if I have any specific doubts or something is stopping me, I kind of interact with my manager to like clear things up. Or if I want to show a couple of ideas, you can, a lot of people, they do this, like they go into 10 different directions. And then at the end of the week, they're like, okay, I experiment so many things, but I don't know what really is the best way. So I kind of like, if I have 10 different ideas, I stop at that point of time. And if I can't figure out which is the best way to go, I kind of go to my manager and be like, okay, all of these things are what I'm thinking of. These are my preferred things for these reasons. What do you think? And like in the middle of the week, he can get back to me so that by the end of the week, I do have something that has been wrapped up. So yeah, so I do speak with my teammates a lot, have their views on what I've accomplished, and sometimes some of my teammates do also, like, they want to present something at the end of the week, but they'll do like a mock with me to see what my viewpoints are and if I have any inputs. So we kind of like work together, and have like a lot of meetings, and then try to accomplish something every week. Yeah, that's how it is.
Thank you, Ritu. Rujita, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I think what I'll do is probably I'll think about overall, like I recently was working as a business intelligence engineer, and I'm still onboarding at Facebook. It's been just 2 weeks, so I don't have a very clear idea of how my day would look as a data engineer in Facebook, but I can talk maybe more about Amazon, how it was at Amazon. So let's start with the larger portion. I think 50% of my time was sourcing data and then coding it, like pipelining it. So what it means is it's really important to find out the correct source, because in large companies there are like hundreds of tables which could contain very similar data, or sometimes you will find 2 or 3 tables which contain the same data. So you need to understand what filters are applied, and like, let's say if you are trying to measure how many people ordered something on a particular day in US, so you need to know if that table contains the data for whole US or is it for some states. So it's really important to understand what is there, and who will tell you, like who will have that information is the upstream team, right, who owns that table. So I spend a lot of time talking, understanding, like meeting these people, understanding what data do I need, and then further like coding it. I club that into the same bucket because it's the same thing. Like when I'll code, I'll have some questions, so I'll go back to them, ask and clarify. So I think 50% of my time was that. And then rest of the, like, let's say around 25% is where you need to understand what are you even trying to do. Like when business comes to you with a request, right, we are launching some new product, so we need your help with these 3 things. So really understand like how can you help them, because not necessarily, like they might not know the technical language. So you need to step in and you need to understand the product. You need to understand what exactly is going on. So I used to spend around 20 to 25% of my time on that. And rest of the like 25%, maybe let's club into like let's separate them out into 2 buckets. So 15% would be I used to reserve some time to try out my own things, or do some innovation on my own. Like in my team we had that flexibility where I could spend around 4 hours a week or so, where like let's say I think that okay, this process can be automated, even if that's not a business priority, I had the flexibility to work on it. So I used to spend some time on that. And rest of the 10% I definitely used to spend on making sure that I'm connected with my stakeholders. Like Ritu mentioned earlier in the call, those will be like laterals, like left and right. That means whom you work with, basically, like maybe it is Ds, project managers, product managers, and up and down. So keep in touch with those people. So that's what I used to do. I had one-on-one scheduled with everyone, either like bi-weekly or once a week, so that I update them with what I am working on and make sure that we are all aligned to deliver the like impact that we've planned for. So I think yeah, that's the breakdown of my day.
Thanks a lot. Manviran, can you go on quickly? I think it's becoming late, so let's keep it quick. We are nearing the end of the session. Also wanted to mention that if anyone has any doubts, we'll be taking them after this, more or less, 1 or 2 questions, that's it. So you can post them in the chat box as if you want to. Thank you. Please go on, Manviran. Thank you.
Sure. So life of a data engineer is like almost the same everywhere. Like you pull in data, you set up the infrastructure, but I can speak for mostly the fintechs, right? So fintechs, you need to get the data, and that data has to have SDLC process. That every day you get the data, you give it to the business, and their life is easy. They come at the market start, and they have the data back ready for the last minus date. So this process, right, there can be many things added to, like they need a new data set and they need a stable infrastructure where they just in a single click or like within just a single or 2 days of development, they can get any new data set from any source. So that's what we try to make, like as general as the system is. So talking about daily life routine, right? So around 60% of the time goes to development, where we try to develop either like infrastructure or we improve it. Like one simple example over here was earlier we were using the on-premise JPMC services. Like all our cluster, all our machines were on the JPMC, but now we went on Amazon public cloud. So that's one place when you need to all plug in, plug play, and you need to test all out. You need to migrate all the things stuff. So that's development. Rest is 30%, I could say, goes on support issues, because every day your production might have some issues. So we as a team of like 4 or 5 people, we rotate, right? So if the issue is there in some like ownership of some developer, then we call it out. If there are some changes, then he need to test it again. Or like if it's a major break, then we all unite as a team. We try to solve it as soon as possible so the business is not impacted. So support goes up pretty much, and rest 10%, I would say, that's strategic implementation. Like you talk to business, you talk to your managers, you talk to your previous teams, you try to utilize your day as much as I can. Like you're not doing anything redundant, you're doing everything as a strategic that's useful in the next days or next months with the whole organization or a team. That's pretty much the life of a developer.
Thanks a lot for that. I think we got a pretty good idea of what everyone does and how their life is. So basically, to end up, I am asking a question from which I've taken from the audience. That is, how much of research work is included in your job on a daily basis? Like, is it relevant to your side of work, or is there a different career path you have to take if you're trying to achieve that? Anyone can take it who thinks they can answer it.
I can go first.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, so my title exactly is quantitative researcher. So like among the 3 or 4 job roles that we discussed, it doesn't fit exactly in any of those silos. So it's like a quantitative researcher, machine learning position, something like that. So research work is kind of like appreciated, and it's kind of required. So if you're like trying to solve a problem, we do kind of do a literature survey, see what are all the options out there, and we kind of shortlist a few, then prototype it, see how it's performing, and then maybe use it or not use it. But yeah, it is a part of my job role right now.
Okay. Thanks for that. Does anyone else have anything to add to that, actually?
Yeah, I can also add a little bit to that. So typically, as a data scientist, or like in any role in the spectrum of like data science and development, especially depending on where you lie in the spectrum. As a research scientist, for example, at Amazon, you'd be expected to spend most of your time on core theoretical concepts, or the core research of the applied work. So like basically you would be expected to publish papers. Amazon has internal machine learning conferences and so on, and so that people in that role would be expected more to publish papers across these different internal conferences across different specializations. And when you move a little further, like an applied scientist or a data scientist, it's a fine balance between research relevancy to business, as well as, like you could say, developing the framework or the pipelines. And so a good amount of time, about 20 to 30% of the time, would be expected in most data scientists or applied scientist roles to go into, like as a research scientist, like I mentioned, would be more, it'd probably be 40 to 50 to 60% of your time going into core research. But as a data scientist or applied scientist, definitely 20 to 30% of your time going into exploring cutting edge techniques, maybe just setting aside time, even if not relevant to what the business asks of you at this point, but just out of pure curiosity or just for knowledge sharing purposes, which can be later used in different business applications.
Okay, thanks for that. So I wanted to one more question which I wanted to ask was, how do you pick self projects? So a lot of I think all four of you have mentioned that doing projects is very important, and how do you think we should choose projects? That's one question which is common. I think we should start with Harshil. Would you like to go?
All right. So when it comes to so the question is how to pick projects, right?
Yeah, like self projects which you asked that you can do it on the side kind of thing.
So one obvious or one you could say more common choice that could come to mind is if you're specializing in a non primary field that most CDC on-campus recruiters are looking for. Like let's say it's biotech or let's say it's biotech or chemistry or physics or something else. Then basically and you choose, your goal is to get into the industry of data science, or your goal is to become a data engineer, then you can find ways at the intersection of your current field of study and the field that you want to get into, and search for projects in that intersection. And a good way to get experience with that, which could also convert into recommendation letters later on, is to do your thesis project in your bachelor's or your master's thesis project, depending on whether you're dual degree or BTech. You could pick your thesis project, not necessarily in your department. I know most professors send out a list of projects that you can choose from, but you can also propose your own projects. Like I'd kind of done that. So I kind of went to another professor in a different department who was working in this intersection of medical devices and instrumentation with potential applications for machine learning. Especially on brainwave data, and so I saw that as a route to gain some data experience, some modeling experience, and I kind of like went and proposed that as a project to the professors in the biotech department, and that got accepted. And so basically, that could be a route where you find something in the intersection. And another thing could simply be just taking courses online, which like if you have a target program in mind, you want to go for graduate studies, or if you want to simply join a company after you graduate, then you kind of need to communicate with people and understand what the company is looking for, and take courses online. Most you can get them for free, and basically just gain the foundation or the foundational concepts in those areas enough to like demonstrate your knowledge during an interview.
Okay. Does anyone like to go ahead and add anything to it?
Yeah, I would like. Go ahead, Ritu.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, if it's the first project that you're doing, maybe you can try to replicate something that someone has done before, just to know what the life cycle of the project looks like. Like, starting for the first time on your own can be kind of like difficult. So like there's so many blogs out there, so you can see get the data set, see every step that they've done, and try to do that on your own. And once you've worked on a project, then you can kind of define your own problem statement and criteria of success, and then go about it like in a structured manner. But for the first time, if you're like really starting out, maybe try to get a project that someone has done that you're interested in, and try to do the same thing to just get started.
Thank you. Rujita, would you like to?
Yeah. So in addition to the points like Harshil and Ritu mentioned, I'd like to add that, when you're selecting a project, you can select a project which like uses the skill that you have like written in your resume, or the skill that you want to, show. Like if you are applying for a data scientist job or data analyst job, then probably you need to know SQL in detail. So use like you take up a project where you can demonstrate the SQL ability. And let's say you can do one of this project, maybe the next one you can take up like which uses more of a visualization tool. So if you pick up different projects which actually demonstrate these different abilities, the recruiters will be able to clearly understand that, yeah, you have taken like, self initiative, and you are interested in learning more about the field, and you've started. So each of these projects will actually demonstrate your skills in each of these tools.
Thank you for that. Manuviran, would you like to go on and add something? Yes.
Yeah, I think almost everything is covered. But yeah, when you're applying as a fresher, right, and you don't know much like where you are an absolute fit in, so try to read maximum of the job descriptions and all. Like, what are they really trying to do, and try to match yourself in. Like, if you are a best fit for a job or not. Maybe like they are just doing some analytics and you don't want to do analytics. Like you are meant for data science, then you are not absolute fit for that job, right? So if try to find out what they're really trying to do and try to map that from your fundamentals, like how can it be done. So if you're seeing at the flow, right, as a framework, then you will find yourself like where are you really interested in and what you exactly want to do. And as a time progress, right, there will be other constraints that you will be more worried about.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we've reached the end of the session. So one last question. So I'm just hoping that all of you can give 1 or 2 lines of advice to all of us, all of the students who are having their CDC next year and their future interviews. So yeah, let's start. Who wants to go first? Can do it.
Okay, I can say one of the advice that was given to me, which is really helpful, is sometimes you're very stuck up in the way that, okay, this is exactly what I want to do, and you just say no to other opportunities, even before, you kind of get the thing that you want. So, like, don't close the doors for yourself, like, keep those relationships and keep those opportunities open, so that finally you do have like 3 or 4 things to choose from. Like, if you're like, no, I do not want to be a machine learning engineer, I just want to be a data scientist, and someone is giving you that opportunity, like, keep that open for you until you are at a position where you can choose between the two. So be open is what I would say. And since you're just starting out right now, I think the more flexible you are and the more open you are to experimenting, the better it is, rather than just like being in second year and deciding, no, I just want to do data engineering, or no, I just want to be a data scientist and not a machine learning engineer. A lot of things are going to change in a few years. This is a very um, growing field right now. So, be flexible, be open, do not close doors for yourself.
Okay. Harshil, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So to add on to what Ritu said, it's very important to be open-minded, like she said. And early on, no one really knows what they want to do, and so it's important to explore, try different things, and see what works best for you. It's possible that maybe programming is maybe you're not that much into programming, or maybe or maybe with you want to you're not entirely sure about which industry you want to get into. You know that you want to be a data scientist, but you're not sure which industry you want to get into. And so you can try internships in different areas, in different industries, in similar roles, and see what works best for you. And another thing is basically you could say it's important to be consistent. It's important to be like like especially when it comes to preparation and stuff like that. You've got to be small steps matter, and it's important to not wait for the last moment to start preparation. You can take small steps along the way. Just being regular, being consistent, and being disciplined is important. And along the way, you will learn how to be resilient. You will learn how to cope with you learn how to cope with rejection, because it's on through rejection is how you get stronger, and how you learn how to become a better version of yourself. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, who'd like to go next?
I can go. So what
Sure.
I have seen in CDC is like it's very over competition, because you're competing in the best minds in the world, right? And especially if you say for the non-CS, EC or ME departments, it gets very competitive. Like after few days, you start feeling like the situation goes depressing. But that's not the case. Keep it calm and simple. Focus on your skills. Like, what do you want your skill to be in next 5 years? Think it that way. Groom it maximum as you can. Be calm and don't sell yourself real quick. if you're just selling yourself on the first day, right, you're not getting the opportunities to see on the day 2. So be patient, sell yourself only when you think like you are the best fit for this job and like you are really wanted to looking to work over there. But many things matter most, like which you don't see on the day 1, like or suppose like how many people over there while you're sitting in the placement are really caring about the what's the work culture in that organization. No one, right? But that's really important. So there are many things that we don't care about, but be patient, don't sell yourself real quick.
Okay,
Best of
thanks
luck.
for that.
I can just like add a line, like the first company that you work for and the first package that you get, they don't define your career at all. Like 5 years down the line or 3 years down the line, everyone is going to be doing well. So like the first company and first paycheck, like really you shouldn't care that much. What you should focus on is like learning skills.
Thanks, Ritu. Rujita, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think like most of the advices are pretty much covered. I would like to just reiterate on yeah, it's okay if you are not successful in the first go, because CDC it's really like there's a lot of pressure, there is a lot of competition, and you only have like I think around 2 weeks or so. Like companies just come for those 2 weeks, and it's super concentrated. Like you'll have some 8 or 10 companies coming on a day, so it is very stressful. So like choose your fights. You don't need to sit for all 10 and like stress yourself out completely. Select the companies that you are interested in and try for them. And of course, like if you don't get placed, right, like me, if you don't get placed in the company you want or in the sector that you want, there are a lot of opportunities outside CDC, and I've seen a lot of people get off campus placements. So yeah, that's okay. Like don't be depressed because you are not able to crack the CDC company specifically. Yeah, there are basically a lot of opportunities out there.
Thanks a lot for that. I mean, it was a great advice from everyone. Thank you for that. So I think that is all we have for today. It was actually very wonderful to interact with all of you, and it was my pleasure to host this panel. I hope everyone got a basic idea of what this field is about and what our alumni do. And I'd like to thank all the alumni who joined us on behalf of our team and everyone who was present here for your cooperation and for making this event a success. So to all the people who are applying for CDC next year, all the best. And thank you. Bye.
All the best.
Thank you. All the
Bye, all the
best.
very best.
All the best.